r/AskReddit, parents who tried their best to raise their kids to be good humans but they turned out to be jerks. What do you wish you did differently? You don't have to win every power struggle. I don't have jerk kids. But I do think I've learned a lot from having 4 very different kids, and I think too many parents think the same strategies work for all kids, i.e., rule consequence behavior falls in line, rinse and repeat, and 2. Focus on the behavior rather than the cause. If you have a kid who doesn't respond to your parenting style/philosophy, you should rethink your approach. It's not all the kid's fault. Some kids will burn their lives to the ground to make a point. I have one like that. For too long, it was a vicious cycle of kid acts out, I punish. Kid is angry, acts out more, I punish harder. Kid is angrier, acts out even more, I punish even harder. And on and on and on and on. Something needs to break the cycle. For instance, if your kid is challenging your authority, it's usually a bid for more independence. They're trying to be more mature, and they want your adult respect. You don't have to excuse the bad behavior, consequences are okay. But you also have to look for ways to help your kid get that need met. You don't have to tie it to the actual incident, so it doesn't look like a reward. Give them more responsibility for themselves. Let him walk to school alone if he doesn't get to do that. Quit bugging him so much about what he does with his free time, even if you think he should be getting more fresh air. Look for any opportunity to let him choose something. We're going to do something as a family on Sunday. You can choose what we do, or where we eat, or whatever. Don't tell him when he has to do his chores. Let him set his Saturday schedule. I need you to mow the lawn and do the dishes today. You can do it any time between now and 6 p.m. If you address the cause of the behavior, it's going to do way more to correct a bad behavior, and you'll also get more respect from your kid. If you insist on winning every power struggle, your kid is going to see everything as a fight. Edit. I need to give my wife credit for helping me understand this over the years. She's not only a great mom and wife, she's also a really good therapist. She's gained a lot of perspective working with other kids and parents and working on those relationships. Generally speaking, if you try to teach your kids something and not be the example, you might as well not have wasted your time. Not me, but my parents have discussed what they wished they had done differently for my brother in order to prevent him from becoming a violent, homeless, drug-addicted snotball of a person. They wish they had sent him to therapy before problems ever started, and that they had reacted quicker and sent him sooner when they did. They wish they hadn't yelled so much at all of us. That they had been more patient and forgiving of our mistakes. They wish a lot. The mom of one of the Columbine shooters gave a TED Talk about this. I have one child, the youngest, who I'm starting to worry about. He's tall, athletic, attractive, and very charismatic. I feel like it's a constant battle between teaching him respect and humility and the worship he gets at school. At his age, he's not prepared to deal with all these peers who want his attention, tell him how great he is, and the girls lining up to talk to him. Yeah, don't we all wish we had this problem as teens? Anyway, it's a struggle. He's gotten cocky and thinks life will just keep on treating him like a king. And maybe it will. He's got the type of personality that makes people want him around. But he needs to treat others with the same respect he expects for himself. Confidence is good, but it needs to be combined with kindness. Our other children are very level-headed and what we feel are good people. I hope we get to properly tech this to our youngest and that he takes it to heart and chooses to be a good person. I wish I knew that some grandparents shouldn't be allowed to have a relationship with a vulnerable, easily manipulated child. I wish I knew it was okay to cut people out of your life. I'm speaking as a teacher. But I've seen wildly different siblings. I think parents need to get a handle on that dynamic. A lot of perfectionist older siblings and younger ones who can't achieve at that level and act out instead to find how they can earn attention. In my experience, most jerk kids come from jerk parents. That being said, kids can easily become jerks when they have no consequences for their actions. Not just as a toddler but throughout childhood. We wanted our kids to be happy, so I think we coddled and spoiled them. They aren't ready to function independently in the adult world. In retrospect, I think learning some hard lessons growing up helps prepare them and is less damaging than learning those lessons as adults. *Edit, to clarify, they aren't jerks, just not ready to be adults. Currently pregnant and acutely scanning this thread to take note of what not to do. In my opinion, the one defining characteristic of bad parents is being resentful of their own children. Resentful that they took some of their freedom, resentful of their youth, resentful of their opportunities, resentful of their intelligence, resentful of their beauty, resentful of their possessions, resentful of their education, resentful of their accomplishments, resentful of their happiness, etc. I think this is far more common than most people realize. These parents may consciously provide for their kids while they unconsciously sabotage them. The kids pick up on this and end up aspiring to their parents' unspoken expectations. Good parents want their kids to exceed their own achievements and, most importantly, to be happy. Good parents are empathetic to their children. They're happy when their kids are happy. They're sad when their kids are sad. Resentful parents don't really want their kids to be happy unless they credit the parents for their happiness. No achievement belongs to the kids, but every failure does. Be very careful who you have kids with. If I could do it all over again, I would have chosen better. They ended up with one responsible parent who was completely overwhelmed trying to do the job of two people. I doubt you're going to get good faith answers from parents on this. My parents would tell you, well, my dad died a few years ago, but he believed this when he was alive, that I turned out terribly. I'm married to a guy I love, raising kids who are reasonably well adjusted, and doing a job I like, living in a nice house with friends and hobbies I love. They don't like the way I dress, don't like the way I wear my hair, don't like my friends, don't like the denomination of synagogue I go to, don't like my career path, and are angry that I'm fat and don't dye my hair. My dad was particularly put out by the fact that my son has long hair and my daughter likes cosplay. Also, they'll say they did a perfect job at raising me and I'm just a failure. I worked with youth for a while in a poorer rural part of America, and in my anecdotal experience there are two types of kids that can turn into bad humans. 1. They've just had tough lives and no good role models. If you get to know them, you realize they are just normal kids that have never been given the tools, opportunity, or encouragement to act any different. If Noon figures out how to intervene, it becomes a pattern of life for them that spirals out of control. 2. Kids that never suffer the consequences of their actions. They tend to have really nice caregivers who have a knack for getting their kids out of trouble. When I say they don't suffer consequences, I mean literally. Their parents do their homework, their parents lie for them, their parents don't ever tell them no. Their caregivers also don't supervise them, but whenever anything happens they are easily manipulated by their child and take whatever their child says as gospel truth without question. And although the parents don't supervise their children, they seem all too willing to give them everything their child asks for, within the confines of their economic class. The caregivers are somehow both emotionally neglectful but also always there to help their child out of a jam. In a way that feels like they want to be manipulated by their child. Kids in the first category will do something bad and you go, how could they be so stupid? When kids in the second category do something bad, your reaction is, it's only a matter of time before they kill someone. I knew a lot of young adults that got in trouble with the law, but it was only people from category 2 that got tried for murder and manslaughter. Ugh. We talked to our son about everything under the sun. We had an open forum. We talked extensively about money management, sexuality, dating, how to treat other people, drug use, alcoholism, and its consequences. He and I also watched a ton of documentaries together on all of the above topics. I have a thing for shows like Underground Inc., Drugs Inc., Broken, and many series like Dope Sick. Once he turned 18, he began to do literally everything we advised against. It's been a hard few years. After losing his GF, losing his job and spending some time in jail, I think he's starting to listen. He's been doing a very good job lately. We love him and we support him despite how hard it's been. I feel bad even typing this. It's really tough to look back and legitimately say what could have been done differently. What I can say to coming parents is, don't give up on your kid. Do the best you can. You can't control everything. Not my kid, but a kid I grew up with. His parents were super strict and this kid was one of the most religious people I've ever met. He was in church pretty much any time the church was open. Was a great guy and a really good person, but very odd because of his parents. He was the one always getting made fun of, etc. I found out recently that he was arrested a few months ago on child porn charges, which absolutely blows my mind. I never would have thought that coming from him. I don't know, but maybe if his parents hadn't been so strict and controlling, he would have turned out differently and been a little more well-adjusted socially. Edit, just for all the people assuming he was abused at church, it's very unlikely, although not impossible. I also grew up going to that church before my parents got divorced when I was a teenager and I stopped going altogether, though I never went as frequently as he did. There wasn't any abuse going on that I was aware of, and the pastor was a great guy who I still respect to this day despite no longer believing in church much. Like I said, I can't say 100% for certain, but I seriously doubt anything like that happened to him there. One of the saddest things I've ever read is about Elliot Rodger's parents. I'm sure they made mistakes, but they saw it coming. He, Elliot's father, recalls with a twinge of regret the what could have been moment when Elliot's alarmed mother called police on her son, but they left after Elliot convinced them that his online rantings were harmless. At that point Elliot had already purchased 3 guns and had been practicing at a firing range in preparation for his retribution. IIRC, his parents sent him to therapy for years, but they couldn't force him to go once he turned 18. It seems like they tried everything they could. And their son still ended up being a mass murderer. I guess I'm that shithead kid. My parents were incredibly strict and controlling, and my parents didn't practice or express unconditional love. I had to earn my place with them. My mother is very religious, to the point of absurdity. If I ever wanted to express myself in a way that was slightly nonconformist, it was a huge problem. My father just wanted to watch TV, smoke cigs, and be left the fuck alone. They made me spend my free time as a teenager working because if my dad had to go to work, so did I. I was incredibly rebellious until about 17 when I realized I was at the end and would be free soon. I just put my head down and took their criticizing and bullying until I got to walk out their door free. My childhood was pure punishment and my home was a prison. I left home and I was just like a not well socialized person, and my sense of self was always negative. I used lots of drugs and alcohol and created problems for myself. I had a survivor mindset. I had to do whatever I had to do to survive because I just couldn't go back home. The world really beat me down and put me in my place. I have a lot more humility now. I'm kind of a broke loser, but I work all the time. I don't think he'll ever thrive in a material sense, but getting some peace of mind and perspective has made me appreciate my situation. For what it's worth, I have no children, just to be clear. I think kids need unconditional love from their parents. They should be held accountable for mistakes, but they are humans and some mercy for their misgivings is required. You should probably do more to culture their kids than just expose them to church and labor. Maybe take them to a museum or something. and you should probably not punish them for having their sense of self and expression. But I'm skeptical that even the most well-intentioned person can break the cycle of misery and working-class drudgery. Sent them to a private school so they didn't have to associate with or get beaten up by aspiring gangsters. I think this about two of my cousins. My Uncle Ed had a severely strict mother, the type of Southern mom that domineered her husband and took no nonsense from her kids. To the extent that all three of her kids were estranged from her for a bit, but two of them, including my Uncle Ed, have been reconnected for decades. My uncle, vowing to never be this strict with his kids, essentially just never disciplined his kids. Whenever Ed and my Aunt Lana had an issue with them, the kids could go to Ed and get out of it because he was kind of a pushover. They grew up to be rude, didn't respect curfews at like age 12. The son always had some sort of issue. My family is very hush-hush about mental health. I think it's ADHD, that led to angry bursts as a kid, and they tried their best with medication, but it kind of mellowed him out into a shell of himself till they found a better med combo. Another thing that may play a role is they're half black, my side, and half white, Ed's side. I won't pretend to know if there was an identity issue growing up, but I was very judgmental of them because they kind of both tried to act ghetto, like they grew up in a tough neighborhood with a hood accent, and I'm like, no, you grew up in one of the most affluent neighborhoods in the state with both parents and a lot of chances. So yeah, last year my mom admits to me both of the cousins got into drugs and had to go to rehab. Again, knowing my family, they'd freak out at weed, but I think it was that and also opiates. And I'm just shaking my head thinking that this is kind of all on my cousins. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you have enjoyed this video and subscribe to never miss an upload.